This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday, May 12th Advisory Board meeting. And we'll, as usual, I hope that, this is a public meeting. Just a reminder to everyone, we'll record these as we always do and upload them to YouTube as we always do for folks to review for those who can't join us on the phone call. So we'll go ahead and start with the roll call. Ed?
Here.
Pace?
Here.
April?
Here.
Kevin?
Here.
Deb? Deb Roby? Okay. William?
I'm here.
And Lisa? Lisa Cullen? All right, so it looks like we still have enough to proceed with the meeting. It looks as if Deb and Lisa are not on the call today. So next on the agenda, we have the review.
Deb responded in the chat window that she's on, but you can't hear her, so she is on the call.
Oh, okay. I guess retirement does that to people. All right, so so we'll have the review. What about, we don't have anything from Lisa. Donna, was she having a similar issue? I don't see anything in the chat window, but thank you, Joe, for letting me know. All right, review and approval of the last minutes. Rachel?
Good afternoon, everyone. The last meeting was held on April 14th. The March 10th meeting minutes were reviewed and approved. Terrence Samuel presented a brief stakeholder outreach update. Craig Benner presented a Phase 1 OCM update that began on page 1 and ended on page 2. Janice Timmons presented a Phase 1 and Phase 2 financial review. This was followed by the project updates that began with DL issuance, motors maintenance, and FR. And this continued onto page 3 with an update from my DMV portal, SIDLIS and citation processing, renewal notification, and an update from Informatica. And this continued onto page 4. Coral Griggs presented the Phase 1 communications plan. There was a brief Q&A, and the meeting was adjourned at 1:35 p.m. And at the bottom of page 4, you can see the items that were distributed in a meeting packet prior to the meeting.
Any questions, comments, corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ed. Is there a second?
This is Billy, second.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We'll mark these as approved.
Thank you.
We can't hear you, Terrence.
Yeah, sorry about that. I want to make a slight change with the agenda, and rather than do stakeholder outreach next, I want to do OCM update. Craig, can you go ahead and give us the OCM update, please?
I can do that. Thank you. Going to slide number 1 is the overall program for Phase 1. And the first thing is the key risks and issues. The tax collector engagement plan remains late. And however, that tax collector engagement plan was sent through DocuSign and approved. It was presented to the ESC on last Thursday, and they will be sending their comments and or approvals back to us. And so we're waiting for that approval to come forward, and then that would be the final approval. So that would remove that. Next thing is the Orion access or issue and access with the identification of roles, migration of users, and the process for the new users. And so we continue to monitor that from the OCM standpoint. And the change readiness survey final report, not yet complete, but we do expect that out. That's being reviewed by LDO, the final report. And so we should have that within the next few days. The summary and highlights, we just had the Change Champion Network Connect. Those meetings continue. We have another one coming up on Friday. The first virtual meeting went very well. It was well attended. And then the engagement meetings with all the divisions continue to go well. And the change readiness survey was complete. And like I mentioned, the final report is being finalized. The tasks in progress, the tax collector engagement plan is in the approval process that I mentioned. We're also updating all the other engagement plans mid-cycle as we had planned in our schedule. The change readiness assessment survey final report and PowerPoint is being developed. The PowerPoint will go with the final report so that we can present that. And then we continue to facilitate meetings on TAC, FSC, and SEU on the phone calls and troubleshooting meetings. So that's it for the overall program. Then we'll move into the division reports. Slide number 2. The Motorist Services OCM team summary. We continue to monitor the risk for ensuring that the staff has a go live plan. And the tax collector engagement plan falls under Motorist Services. And so that's why it's mentioned here again. For summary and highlights, the override disassociate process was approved by the Deputy Director on April 7th. We continue discussions on the Orion access, and the letter change process that had been approved was communicated and distributed to all the bureaus and is being incorporated into a motor services procedure. The tasks in progress, we continue to meet with TAC to discuss phone call flows. We continue to the work on the transition checklists. The Bureau meeting checklist meetings continue on schedule. The SEU one-day training that was scheduled for the Change Champions has been delayed due to COVID-19. So the implementation change section of our schedule is in green. The planning phase is in amber because of the engagement plan. And so we expect that to go green soon. And the measure and evaluate is in amber because of the readiness survey. On to slide 3. For OED, we don't have any risks or issues identified at this time. So we continue to meet with each of the divisions and office areas. The engagement meetings with the directors and staff continue. And we're also facilitating meetings with BAR and OMM regarding the GoBio Orion issues for a hearing scheduled database system. So the planning implementation remain in green, and the measure and evaluate is in amber because of the survey. Any questions so far on OCM? Okay, with DAS, the one risk and issue is the MyDMV portal and VO running simultaneously is the only risk. We continue with the periodic meetings. And so again, planning and implementation remaining green, and the measure and evaluate for the readiness survey. Next slide. FHP, we're working with BCII. They've raised questions about the MyDMV portal, the need for training and access, and the social media use. They've requested some specialized training, so we're working with them on that, as well as some demonstrations. we continue to meet with them on their meetings. And so they also are participating in the Change Champion Network Connect meetings. And that task in progress is setting up that demo for BCII and understanding exactly what they're looking for any other specific training that they need. Next slide. For ISA, we don't have any specific risks or issues at this time. We're working with developers for the continuing their knowledge transfers and training. We have a lot of the meetings on the knowledge transfer activities. We're meeting with TAC and Motor Services on handling the calls, and we continue the monthly meetings with ISA leadership. So planning and implementation are in green, and again, measure and evaluate is in amber. Next slide. This is a summary of the last Change Champion Network Connect meeting. We did a survey on our virtual meeting to get a better understanding of how that went. The things they found most helpful and informative were that getting the update and the training schedule, the timeline, and the information on change readiness. This is very similar to what they gave us feedback in previous Change Champion Network Connect meetings. The overall thoughts on the meeting, general positivity. They thought it was detailed and informative and well structured and easy to follow, which was good information since this was our first virtual meeting. We had a few people dial in virtually last time, but this time we had 51 of the 55 Change Champions participating in the meetings, which is 93%. So that was a lot of good feedback. The topics that they'd like to discuss in this next meeting, again, is the timeline, specifically on how things will impact their bureau and further updates and outreach. And so the survey or the agenda that we put together for this coming Friday next week will again include updates on the schedule and more LDO updates. And so we've got some of the same speakers coming back to address those topics. The follow-on survey that we put together had 21 of the 51 participants give us feedback on that survey. And like I mentioned, on the 15th, we'll have that next meeting. Then we move on to the phase 2 update. Next slide. Oh, we don't need to address that with this group. So any questions at all on phase 1? Okay, thank you. I bring it back to you, Terrence.
All right, one of the, we'll talk about stakeholder outreach right now, and there are several projects that have to be completed in order for motorist modernization phase 1 to go live. As you know, you've heard us talk about the insurance companies, which we'll hear about later. That was a huge endeavor. Informatica, you've heard us talking about. You also get an update on that later. That has to keep the old database, new database in sync. But there's also cashiering, the third-party cashiering companies you've heard us talk about before that the tax collectors use in their offices. For those that use a third-party cashiering and don't use the cashiering system that is built within the application. So we've been working with Putnam. I think Jessica gave them some videos to get them started as far as putting transactions out there for their cashier vendor. We work with them. So far, we've reached out to them. Rachel sent them another email this week to make sure they're okay. We also have reached out to Orange County. We had a meeting with them last week, their CIO and some of their office managers to make sure, or their office directors, I should say, to make sure we can move forward with them and get whatever they need as far as any kind of overview for the sandbox to be able to do transactions. And I say overview of the sandbox and an overview of the transactions because I like to remind people Jessica is not doing the actual training. When she does this, that's done through LDO. And so LDO has some things coming up starting next week where they're going to start the whole training process and moving out the iLearn training and all of that that's coming up. So we're trying to make sure we contact everyone. I've sent an email to some of the Talise and some others to let them know if they hear of any counties that need any help from us as far as getting transactions out there. We're going to do that. We also had some requests from Charlotte, Duval, St. John's, as far as working with them on doing some sandbox stuff as well, which we're going to do. We're going to start with Orange and make sure we work out everything with them. And because, as you know, we can't travel, we can't go there. Normally we go there and be in a training room. So we're going to work that out with them and going to proceed. So just want to give you an update on where we were with that. Financial review, Janice.
Good afternoon. Let me pull this up real quick. These numbers are as of April 30th, so we're getting close to the end of the fiscal year. For phase one, obviously our 19-20 numbers have not changed. They are 2.3 million for the entire fiscal year, 37.3 for the entire project. Currently, our actuals as of April are 1.6 million. We have the remaining contracted services and a little bit of expense left to expend. Our actuals to date for fiscal year to date are 1.6 with a 0% variance, and our month to date was 160,000 with a 0% variance. We have 723,000 in remaining funds. I'll go over phase two real quick as well. Phase two for 19-20. Our appropriated amount was 13.7 million. Our actuals through the end of April were 6.289 million, with the bulk of that being in contracted services. Our three large procurements are wrapping up. We should see those expenditures hit during the months of May and June. So our budget to actual for fiscal year to date, 6.289. With a 0% variance, and then month to date is 586,000 with a 0% variance. Remaining funds are 7.4 million. Are there any questions on the budget?
Okay, no questions for Janice. We'll move on to project updates. Joe.
Okay, for deal issuance, our team profiles stay pretty consistent. Just as a reminder, we're sharing our developers with the phase two team. We are in the midst of our enterprise testing at this point, where we're trying to get our performance testing wrapped up. We're waiting on one batch process SIPs to complete regression testing before we complete the performance testing on that. Security testing is in progress. Regression testing, as I mentioned, is in progress. It should have wrapped up this past Friday, but we still have a few items to get wrapped up. Team is hoping to get the majority of those wrapped up this week, and there may be one holdover into next week as we're waiting on renewal notices to print so we can get those run through SIPs and as part of the mail-in process. At this point, no risk or issues are really impacting the team. We continue to support vendors through batch transcript and penny vendor testing, as well as third-party cashiering. We are also working with Amber right now. We began our casual testing of SSolve this week and hope to actually do our structural testing of SSolve later this week, waiting for the BizTalk team to get that set up for us. We're also talking to Amber about the other testing that we need to do to make sure we get that wrapped up for the team. We also, as it was mentioned earlier by Craig, we are wrapping up our knowledge transfer activities for the DL team with ISA. We've held 11 of our sessions, 10 of our 11 sessions. We had the last one scheduled for tomorrow, and we'll get that KT wrapped up. We've recorded all of our sessions, as well as presented materials that will be available for folks who were not able to attend those sessions. So there's a lot of knowledge transfer activity that's been going on from our team. Any questions for the deal issuance team as far as where we're at?
Okay.
Thank you.
Scott.
Thank you, Terrence. The Motors Maintenance FR update. Our team profile has been 5 developers, 2 testers, consistent. However, the testers actually had a group of testers join the team, up to about 5 to 7 testers in the last several months to help on and off to kind of push the regression testing period forward. Hats off to them and to their management for allowing them to come and help. Moving down into performance testing, last report we told you that we had 24 tests developed. Because of an issue, number 34, we'll talk about later, we identified that we needed to take the one that we archived, which was the transaction, Orion transcripts, bulk and single features of motors maintenance. We needed to go ahead and test that. The reason why is some of the panels that are related to that page are also concerned with these issue number 34 that we'll talk about. So we have one pending execution to do. So far, the rest of them are all completed and signed off on. Going into the target finish of that performance was March. We're still looking at this month, possibly the end of this month, depending on how well we're able to address these other issues and regression testing. Key implementation activities, last we reported, we had 99% completed. That was about 2 companies that did not complete. As of April 29th, we had all of them completed. So that was one of the things Terrence indicated. That was a huge win for us. And a clap goes out to the insurance companies. They're aware and able to submit their book of business files to the department. And final regression testing, we had it targeted for April. I believe we had May 8th was our deadline. We're still targeting for May to address that. But jumping into the regression testing, we had about 70 to 75% of the SEU testing tasks or objectives, if you will, completed. We're still about 2 weeks behind where we want to be to get that done, at least through the first pass and have all the bugs known. So we're targeting about 2 weeks behind. We have 9 motors maintenance bugs that are in our backlog, 19 are in FR, and as I pointed out, issue number 34, there's 14 of those bugs for FR that are performance related just on the sanction maintenance page and their associated panels. We cannot go live with the delays and latencies of the sanction maintenance page, so this is one of our top priorities. OMM leadership has told us, the department leadership told us, we've got to make sure that those run smoothly. So those are the items that we've put on our high priority. Amongst that, we're looking at sandbox to set up for the LDL for train the trainer. You heard Terrence mention that. We've actually went ahead and delivered all of our objectives to help LDO deliver their train the trainer for this week. So I appreciate we pulled a bunch of our developers and architects, data architects off to assist. So thank you for the team for helping us there. And then of course we are now encroaching in what this time period would be for preparation for go live, the deployment tasks, and as you heard Joe mention, they're almost done with their knowledge transfer. We have to just start developing our knowledge transfer material and delivering that to the operations support. So that was targeted for the month of May. So we're juggling those items. The issues that we had reported, the print service issue and motors maintenance that we reported last time, issue 33, we resolved that April 20th, but this issue number 34 is a very critical issue. The FR sanction panel performance issues, the latencies and the navigation has to be addressed before we go live. Any questions or comments on motors maintenance? If not, back to you, Terrence.
All right, thanks, Scott. Andrea? Andrea?
Can't hear you, Andrea.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the My DMV portal team profile. As you know, we are also in phase 2 development, so we're sharing our developers and testers. So we basically have about a half of a developer and we have 2 testers. that are testing regression for us. We completed our enterprise performance testing, and even though it says that we have started security testing with the security team, as far as regression testing, we were estimated to be complete on May 8th, but we are still making progress in regression testing for my DMV portal. We have about 3 stories that we need to complete. One story, we have an external dependency with motorist maintenance and resolving a solution with printing the withdrawal parental consent cancellation letter. So that may result in a change request, and that testing would be completed up under the change request. As far as key implementation activities, we continue to make any portal core dependency updates. We continue to work with the user guide documentation. We're also continuing to work with LDO on customer service training development, as well as addressing any ADA updates that we are receiving from our regression testing. And regression testing completion is part of our implementation activities, as well as we're also working on creating our implementation dependency documentation. So the team is working to complete that. Key dependency assumptions is any Informatica testing dependencies and any other critical wraps and CRs that may come up at this time. Any questions for my DMV portal? Okay. Shitless citation processing. So the Sitless citation processing team, we have about 4 developers and 3 testers. We have completed our enterprise performance testing. We are currently working on regression testing, and we are doing well, but we have a couple of stories that are still open, and we don't have an estimated completion date. It's the printing and the viewing the barcode on the letters. Our printing vendor is dealing with a lot of production load right now. So our turnaround on receiving our printed letters is kind of a slow turnaround. So we're kind of at we're just kind of dependent on how fast they can get those letters to us. We have worked some bugs out in our regression testing. Like I say, that is looking pretty good. Also, we are currently testing our Sitless baseline 5.3.3 testing with ANVA. We have received our certification from ANVA from our 5.3, but it's not clear whether it should be 5.2 or 5.3 that we're receiving the certification on. So that's a question that I'm trying to ask Todd Browning about and Margaret to clarify, should that be certified for 5.3.3 or should it be certified for 5.3.2? After we finish with our baseline testing, we're going to go into our PDPS testing with ANVA, and this team is also working on the implementation documentation, and we're hoping to, like I said, we don't have a complete date on our regression testing. We're going to work, we already have one approved CR that we're going to work at some point. So we'll be working on that as well. Other key dependencies and assumption, we don't have to worry about the certification. We just need to clarify what it is for 5.3.2 or 5.3.3. Any other wraps or CRs that are critical to our go live date. Any questions for Sitless citation processing? Okay. Renewal notification. We have like one developer and we have one tester. We had completed our performance testing, but once we got into regression testing, we started having other printing performance issues. So those issues have come back up again, and we are readdressing those right now. Renewal is in regression testing, but we are waiting for our developer to work on a performance issue that we're having with the printing of the letters. We're also working on a performance issue with the email service, and we're hoping to have those worked out within the next week or so. And we were planning to have regression testing completed last week. Like I said, we're at their dependency to find out when we're going to fix the performance issue as far as regression testing. Some other key implementation activities is also we're working on completing the implementation dependency documentation for the team. And like I said, getting the printing environment stable. And that will also, this team, key dependencies and assumption would be whether we receive any more further changes on the DL notices. Any questions for renewal notices? Thank you.
Okay, you all just heard project updates. Any overall questions for any of the project managers? Anything? Okay, Coral, do you have communications update today?
I don't.
Okay. You know, all the project managers gave their update, and at this point, you know, we're concentrating on regression testing. There's some security testing going on as well, performance testing. We're at the point that all of us, we have a systems evaluation unit that does testing, but we're at the point that I feel like everybody who touches the application needs to become testers at this point. We have some internal demos that we're doing inside the application. I've instructed folks that, you know, when you're going through preparing for your demos, for whatever group needs to see them, you know, try to break the application. If we find bugs at that point, that is, you know, one less than we're introducing when we implement and we go live. So that is something that we're continuing to do. We're also continuing to get change requests. There are things that folks have forgotten about. Like I said, there are things that the bugs as well, but our governance process with the ESC, they're taking kind of a hard look at all of these things to make sure that they are absolutely necessary to have before we go live and go into production environment. We also need to make sure that we're evaluating our processes, that when we go from one environment to the other, we make sure we have all that stuff documented, that there's nothing that we're going to forget. Once we go live, all of that's going to be very important when we put the application into production. We find things that we have a process set that we know how to promote things to production, which is why it's very important that we get a handle on all of that now. Performance testing, as soon as we're able to travel again, we will go on site to some of the offices again. I think we're planning at some point to go down to South Florida. I think I reported this before, and do some performance testing, continuing that in the offices. We had started that prior to everything that's happened with the virus, the COVID-19, but we are going to continue that as soon as we are able to travel again. So just wanted to give you that update on everything that we're trying to do, trying to make sure we are prepared to move forward, continue to work with the counties on cashiering, and as we can, you know, like I said, as we continue to move forward. Is there an Informatica update today? Sherilyn?
Yes, there is.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't feel slighted.
You almost got off, Sherilyn.
That's all right.
All right, sorry about that. Go ahead.
That's okay. So good afternoon, everybody. The Informatica update is, we'll start with the testing summary. Right now, the SEU testers are testing the core and the non-core. The non-core mappings were installed today, and so now everything, all of the mappings for core and non-core are in the system test and in the stage environment for testing, for Informatica UAT testing. So everything's there, but they just got started with those, and so they need time to ramp up that testing before we start reporting on any testing status. For the core, Right now, they are about 45% done with the core testing. And based on meeting today, the UAT testing for Informatica, the dates that we were provided for SEUs should wrap up in October, were the dates that we were given. However, for the non-core, because we're working with a vendor on that piece of the Informatica mapping, they're going to work with us to try to wrap that testing up for UAT for the non-core by July 3rd, so that the Plant Moran contractors can finish up any outstanding bugs or issues by the middle of July. So hopefully we'll have that piece of the testing done by mid-July. For the seeding validation, just added these statistics for seeding. Kevin Gray is working on the validation for the seeding and our shadow stage environment, and he has a team working with him. Right now, they're about 10% complete. They just kind of got going, and he plans to wrap that testing up by mid-July. So our forecasted key dates are deployment of the core mappings that have been refactored to include the error handling by the 18th of May. So the core mappings have to be refactored to include the error handling, and that work is scheduled to be, the development is scheduled to be done by the 18th of May, and the promotion to stage will be either the 21st or the 22nd of May. So we don't have a date nailed down for the deployment of the core to production, but it'll be following the completion of SEU testing. The deployment of non-core, the latest update there, and I'll change that date, but the latest update is today. That's the latest. They were deployed today. We were supposed to have them deployed by the 5th of May, or actually it was the 6th of May, but we missed that date and they got deployed to stage today. And there again, the non-core bidirectional workflows and mappings are scheduled to be production ready, not necessarily deployed to production, but the production ready by the 17th of May. Moving on to the key risks and issues. For issue 135, which is being tracked, Plant Moran is the vendor that we're working with, or who's working with us for the non-core. They're also assisting us with fixing bugs for the core. So right now they have about 4 developers who are working with us on core bugs, while the 2 Informatica developers that are here are working on refactoring the core mappings for the error handling. Moving on to key Informatica activities, as I stated, both ISA and SEU are currently testing the mappings in the stage environment. Seed validation is going on. Plant Moran is working on bug fixes for the core, and SEU have started their non-core testing. So our key dependencies are that Natasha is working with us, and she's pretty much sequestered to work with us on the Informatica testing. Kevin was able to get some additional resources to help him with the seeding validation. And we also have working through a process for technical support from OMM developers, so that we don't, or we try to minimize the impact to the work they're doing for phase 1 and phase 2. So are there any questions for Informatica? Okay, thank you.
All right. Sorry again, Sherilyn, for forgetting you there. If there are no other questions for anyone, we will adjourn this phase 1 advisory board meeting. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.